Hello, hello. All right, I am super excited. Today I am going live to talk about what is it like to really unleash, reveal, tap into your full intuitive potential, to become the intuitive channel. And one of the best ways that I can talk about becoming the intuitive channel is to share and highlight a story of some of the women who have been through my program, Higher Self Awakening. So I'm going to invite her on, but I'm excited to introduce Wendy Harvey. Wendy is a certified quantum coach, and she specializes in helping women who are overthinkers and people pleasers, and maybe you're feeling drained and stuck, and helping you shift into a more empowered state through spiritual healing, mindset shifts, and boundary setting. I am so excited to invite Wendy on so that she can share more about her experience inside Higher Self Awakening, as well as speaking on how does infusing spirituality, intuition in your business, how does that help you with quantum leaps? All right, let me invite in Wendy. Magic here, hopefully.
I know I was worried there for a minute too. I was like, oh my gosh, I sent the request. Why isn't it going through?
It's okay. And sometimes, I'm like tapping on the buttons. I'm like, accept. Wendy, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are you, Maria?
I'm doing well. It's like kind of a weird weather day here. It started out really gloomy, cold, rainy, and now the sun's popping out. How about you?
We had the opposite. Woke up to sunny, clear skies, and now it is dark and gloomy and chilly.
Oh, yeah, it's a weird day.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to come on and share my experience in Higher Self Awakening. It was so transformative. Like, that was the biggest takeaway for me.
Wendy, will you share? So I did a little mini intro for you, but yeah, would you share a little bit more about one, how long have you been in business and entrepreneurship? When did you begin to feel that nudge that you wanted to begin like putting something out into the world? And then I'd also be curious to hear, like, in addition to that, like, I know you mentioned when you joined Higher Self Awakening, you'd been dabbling in woo,
Mhm.
like spirituality wasn't per se new to you, but I'd love if you would even share a little bit more on that spiritual journey as well. So whichever one you want to share on first, but I want to like allow listeners to hear, like, because we're going to obviously blend the two,
Right,
but yeah,
right,
what's
right.
that journey been like for you?
Okay, so yeah, I started, I want to say really going deep into my woo probably about 3 years ago. And when I really started, listening to the nudges, actually, in the beginning, of course, you don't know that they're nudges, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's only in hindsight as you look back and you're like, oh, the guides were guiding. Yes. Yeah. And
They're always working in the background, aren't they?
absolutely. And it does take a long time to realize, it's not until you've gotten and you've unknowingly been following those nudges that you can look back and say, oh, the realization hits. And it's like, yeah, they were definitely pushing me because there were things that
Yes.
happened along the way that I couldn't explain, and it was one of those where it was like, just finding myself in situations or that like the synchronicities were so like out of left field, but they were meant to happen, and I'm where I am now because of it.
Isn't it funny that like our ego, when those little synchronicities happen and before we're fully like open to our full soul self, our ego has a way of being like, oh, that was just random luck. Or like, it didn't really make sense. But your ego doesn't like dwell on those things, doesn't really see them as nudges at first. It's like, interesting, moving on, like
Yeah.
there's no logic or reason behind that. Let's not spend too much time on that. I just think like we haven't really been fostered or coached, right, from as little girls typically,
Hmm.
to like really tune into those inner nudges.
Oh
But
yeah.
it sounds like your guides had been guiding. They were sprinkling some breadcrumbs.
Yes, no, absolutely. And honestly, even when I first started, getting into entrepreneurship, I started it as affiliate marketing because I really in a place
Oh,
in time, in my life and in my family life where there were some things that had to happen. I left my job with the school district at that time, and I really needed something that I could do that had a flexible schedule that could work around my home life.
Yes.
There was a lot going on at home, and I needed that flexibility. I could not have a regular 9 to 5 job, and so that's really where I started going online. And that led me to there's so many synchronicities in the stories now that I look back, but
I love
it
this.
led me to my business coach who I currently work with, Anna, who you've had as a guest.
Yes.
And Anna does human design, and I really was intrigued by the idea of human design. I'd never heard of it, but when she explained it to me, I was like, heck yeah, tell me more. I want to know about
Yes.
myself at that soul level.
And you just have,
And
like, she just happened to all of a sudden end up in your orbit,
mhm,
end up in your world. Yep.
absolutely. And it was I found Anna through my Reiki practitioner, and it was the first time I'd ever gone for Reiki.
Interesting. Interesting. I
Yes.
do find that a lot of people too, I like Reiki's kind of a gateway for a lot of people.
Mhm.
People hear about Reiki, like, oh, energy session, I should check that out. And it's like a whole door to things,
Oh,
isn't it?
yeah. And at first, obviously, if you've never had Reiki done before, it is very much a what is happening because
Yeah.
they're not really touching you.
Right.
You don't look at it. It's not a regular massage per
Yes.
se,
Yes.
where you're getting muscle work and stuff, body
And so
work.
you're like, how is this shift happening? She's not even laying hands on me. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. And when we were done, I remember feeling lightheaded. And she was like, drink lots of water, get outside. And I was like, can I even drive right now? Because it's like,
I feel light as air right now.
yes.
I'm sure
And
she
that was,
like tuned all of your chakras. I'm sure you were in like this beautiful
oh, yeah.
alignment that like we're not used to being in that.
And it wasn't until afterwards, obviously, I was like, okay, something happened because I've never felt this way before. Like it was very much an expansive moment for me. And really, like from there going, okay, this happened. I'm experiencing it, and I've gone to see her regularly now. It's
Oh.
if I go too long without seeing her, I can tell.
Yes, yeah, because it literally like we get like the energy gets stuck, right? In our day to
Mhm.
day, especially if I know you specifically help with kind of like overthinkers, people pleasers, right?
Right.
Who we tend to take on a lot of stuff and you can really hold
Oh
on
yeah.
to that. So like I love that like again, Reiki is a beautiful gateway practice one into spirituality and woo, but
Mhm.
also it's really helpful in like aligning your chakras, getting rid of that excess energy that no longer serves you.
Oh yeah, and clearing stuff out,
Yeah.
there was a moment where she asked me what I wanted to work on, and I said, I'd really like to work on my throat chakra. I can tell that I have some blockage there, and I think it was after one of our healings actually. And you
Yep.
had mentioned that my guides were like, no, you need to clear out your work on your throat chakra. And I had asked her, let's work there,
Yeah.
and she started working, and I remember I was using visualization techniques as she was doing, Reiki, and all of a sudden I just started coughing, and she was like, "Oh yeah." She's like, it was big time blocked." I was like, "Okay."
And it is nice, as human beings, we with an ego, right? We all have this like ego mind
Mhm.
that's very logical, survival driven, and we kind of do this work and talk about this inside Higher Self Awakening, but it's like we can't get rid of the ego. The
Mhm.
ego is part of you. It's part of survival. And so like it is really helpful for the ego to sometimes have things affirmed and validated in different ways, right? So whether it's like you're going through a healing container inside HSA and I'm like, gosh, I think there's some throat stuff going on, Wendy, or like something comes up and something's shown to you. And then to also then go to your Reiki practitioner or, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like to get further clarity of like, oh yeah, there's some stuff going on here. And it feels like there might be some layers here
Oh yeah.
that I need to clear.
Absolutely, absolutely. I specifically remember one treatment that I went to see her, and and I kept like swallowing, and I remember the sensations coming up was like this pressure under my skin right here, like the nasal or the sinus area, and she
Yeah.
stopped what she was doing. She's like, Wendy, do you need to cry? I was like, Yes, and I just started crying, and I never considered myself a big crier. And a lot of that obviously is from childhood,
Yes, yes,
being told not to
yes,
cry, I'll give you something to cry about,
yes. Yeah, and it's
and
actually
so I
quite cathartic
yes.
for us as women and men. Okay, it's so cathartic
Mhm.
to cry. Yeah,
And so I had
yeah.
this major release where I just started crying, but it was so crazy that she could feel that, just like working on me. She's like, "Do you need to cry?" And I was like, "Actually, I do," and it just opened up the floodgates. And I kid you not, I came home. She was like, "Ground in some water," so I took a bath and everything. And then I went on a walk, and the entire walk, I just cried. Like it was
Oh,
just such a cleansing
that is,
release. Hmm.
I love that. And so, Wendy, I'm curious, fast forward, like it sounds like between Reiki, meeting
Hmm.
Anna, these were initial gateways and invitations that your own maybe guides were inviting you to go deeper into your intuitive journey. Now, I'm curious, like, for example, for you, but for me, when I was getting Reiki, I remember the gal who I was working with, I considered her highly intuitive, highly psychic. Actually, I had been using a couple different Reiki practitioners, but both of them, they could do a session with me and be like, yeah, Maria, I got this message when I was at your crown, or, oh, I received this message when I was working on your right arm. And I remember thinking to myself at first, this was like 5, 6 years ago, I'm like, why don't I see these messages? How are you getting all
Hmm.
these messages? I want the messages.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's when I like started like reading the intuition books, doing the intuition meditations. I'm like, come on, like I want these messages,
Hmm.
and ultimately I began then diving deeper into my healing and clearing my channel. For you, how did you know in part like how did you get to the point where you're like, yeah, I want to become more of an intuitive channel. I want to go deeper in this. And what made you say yes to higher self awakening?
Okay. So, leading up to Higher Self Awakening, that whole previous year, I'd gotten my certifications in my coaching, right? And that was a 6 month container, and that was a lot of healing happened in that container. We took turns coaching other people. We were coached. I was very fortunate to have amazing coaches coach me who were
I love that.
peers. And so I did do a lot of healing in that container leading up to, finding you.
And healing is such a big catalyst, right? Like when you begin this healing, you're like, whoa, there are layers
So
here.
many
So I
layers.
love that, like, it was kind of through the healing you're like, oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because, you mentioned how the depths of that healing and how you feel sometimes like, oh, well, I've dealt with this. Well, yeah, kinda. It's like there's still that layer that goes deeper. And I mean, what do they say? New level, old devil.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And so when I remember when I started following you, I just felt so drawn to your
Mm,
message and, like the way that you came across. And I think it was just your vibe, your energy. Like my guides were like, yes, you need to find Maria. So
And
then
I'm so
moving
glad we connected.
into,
I think we hopped into the
yeah,
DMs. I feel like we were chatting in DMs a little.
yes, yes. And then I came to a couple of your Akashic readings that you
Yes.
have.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yep.
Mhm. And really it was for me a no-brainer when HSA, was opened up, and Anna had gone through the previous, container, and her and I would have all these conversations, and I was just like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to be able to like communicate with my guides, my angels, like I really want to. I felt like that was that next step, and I've always had even since I was a kid, obviously looking back, you realize and recognize what that was,
Yes,
and
yes,
even as a
yes.
kid, like I remember that there were instances where I was protected. And obviously, as a kid, I was like, oh man, whoo, I got lucky, that something bad didn't happen. But no, I was being
Yes.
protected. And just having little, like I would hear voices sometimes as a kid, I would be really sensitive to people's energies. So I really think that I've always had, I mean, just like anybody, everybody has it, but I think I was more in tune
Yes.
to it than I realized.
And I also think, though, it's so interesting. And honestly, that's what I love about the transformation that happens inside Higher Self Awakening, is that we do a lot of this deep subconscious healing, not only to sometimes clear through each of our own past experiences, but even like through societal conditioning that we get as women, which on a societal level, I just feel like as little girls, it's a lot of the things that we realize are sometimes like our intuition and these nudges, it gets shut down though as a kid, right? You know what I mean? It's like,
Absolutely.
being that's how you feel about it. Feelings are soft, feelings are weak. Like, just think about it. Just work harder. Just get I don't know. I just think we get these mixed messages as little girls that makes it seem like, oh, intuition's like a soft skill. That doesn't seem like, that seems a little more woo. They keep telling me like, just work harder. They keep telling me study more, think about it more. And ultimately, I think we kind of just get fed like, no wonder we all turn into overthinkers.
Absolutely.
Because so much gets put into those skills. And it's like, oh, okay. So we learn to like disregard the nudge.
Yeah.
We learn to disregard like, oh, listening to these whispers, that must mean I'm crazy. So I just think that societal conditioning plays such a role in why so many women, it's like there's this fog. I can't quite fully connect. So what did it feel like? And I'm remembering, Wendy, there was a specific experience that I want to wait to see what you say too, but you also shared this beautiful experience with me in our Telegram chat, that when you like just felt this deep connection after going through some of those initial healings inside HSA.
Oh yeah, yes,
but
yes.
How did you begin to like, what was the difference? What was one of those shifts for you that you're like, wow, I can feel this profound connection now?
Oh yes, absolutely. Honestly, I have to say that the main catalyst to helping me really open up my channel was the inner child and ego connection. Really having those conversations, sinking into my heart space, and making sure like when I feel doubt for some reason, for whatever reason on something I'm doing, I check in with my inner child and my ego. And now my soul self is also in the mix. I've learned to connect with her.
And you can turn the
And
volume up on her
yes,
safely and still in your system.
yes. And when I am consistent, and Lord knows I still have to work on that consistency.
Yes. Yep. We're still building those habits and practices. And
Still working on it, and it's probably always going to be a work in progress. Never going to be perfect because we're not perfect, right? But the fact that I recognize the difference in my energy of when I do consistently do my practices and get in touch with my inner self or my inner child and my soul self and ego, as opposed to when I've gone a few days without. It is night and day, and day.
And honestly, I think that's the other, thank you for bringing that up, Wendy. I think that's the other unique thing about Higher Self Awakening as an intuition mastery program. I think a lot of people think like, like we're only going to focus on intuition and soul self, which of course I love. I love when we do the healing. I love channeling our guides. I love witnessing each of you feel more deeply connected to your higher self, your angels, all of that. But like a lot of programs then are missing this component of like, we're still in a human body.
Right.
We still have an inner child. We still have an ego. And so that's a big part of HSA, is that we do these practices where it's like, it can be simple, but it's like, are you checking in with how is inner child doing today? How's your ego doing today? Because they often, it's like they're getting used to a new buddy. They're getting used to someone else in the driver's seat within the self. And so until they begin to feel more comfortable with someone else at the reins, taking the wheel, it is a little bit like there's this transition period. So it's so important to make sure that we're checking in with those inner parts of ourselves, because once they learn to surrender, oh man, I mean, like, right, your soul self, then she can come in. She's like, all right, guys, let's like revamp the place. Let's redecorate a little, and everybody can feel on board.
Yes, no, absolutely. And once you acknowledge your soul self, that was a huge part of it too, honestly. Like being able to give her her own identity and say, okay, she's got the wheel. And my ego and inner child are like, yep, we trust her. And then it's like gold from there.
They kind of need to, it sounds like too, I liked you sharing that because it was like, oh, they need to conceptualize her. You know what I mean? Like she needed to be an entity to take the wheel. My soul self is taking the wheel.
Yes, absolutely. And I really think that once I was able to recognize that, and then we all like, this might sound weird to some people, but you know what I'm talking about.
Just say
We're
it.
we're all copacetic. We're all on the same page, and then it's so much easier to move through things that in the past may have felt really hard.
Yes. Yes. And I think the other unique thing, and I'd love if you could speak to this, Wendy, what it's felt like for you. And I know it's something that I kind of sprinkle throughout higher self awakening. And it's honestly one of those things that you kind of sometimes have to keep reminding yourself and your ego,
Hmm.
which is the trust and the surrendering in to your soul mission, your soul purpose, making soul led decisions.
Hmm.
It's not because all of a sudden you're given, I think sometimes people, when they first enter my world or HSA, they're like, oh, she's probably going to give me like the 90-page manual. And I'm
No.
going to like probably walk out of here and I'm going to know like all the steps that I need to take. But throughout HSA, I kind of remind you guys, it's like, I'm not going to be giving you the 90-page manual. You really only just need to know the next step, because
Hmm.
that's the universe working for you. That's your guides working for you, is they can line up these beautiful synchronicities, which is going to be a million times better than your ego trying to plan out the next 90 steps. But that is a little bit of that like ego surrender and
Hmm.
trust. How has that been for you? Realizing it's like, okay, no one's going to give me like the full plan, but like, can I trust that they're going to give me the next step and they're going to give me that guidance and I feel supported? How has that shift been for you?
Oh, huge, 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 huge. Whereas before it was, just full of doubt, doubt in myself, lack of trust in myself, and honestly, really acknowledging that now that I've had that connection open up, really sitting in there and getting quiet. You have to get quiet. You have to get quiet.
Yes.
And you have to
To
let,
receive.
yes, you have to open yourself up to receive, because if you don't, those thoughts just won't stop, and then you can't hear them.
Yes.
And so that was a big deal, because the hardest shift was going from wanting to control everything to recognizing that I am not in control of anything, and trying to keep that control, hold on to that control, kept me on the same path,
Yes.
kept me doing the
Yeah.
same patterns and the same habits that I always did. And so if I wanted something different, I had to let go of that control and
Yes.
recognize that, you know what, my guides have gotten me to where I'm at now. Why would I not let them continue guiding and listening, now that I know especially what to listen, how to listen?
Yes.
That is
Yes.
so important, to be able to say, okay, you know what? I think you told me this. You don't have to know everything.
Yep.
You don't have to know everything, because your guides they already have it divinely planned for you. You'll
Yes.
figure it out as you get to where you need to be to get the next step.
100%. And Wendy, I'm going to share, if you don't mind, that one time where, and again, like there's signs that your guides will send you. It'll be sprinkled in. But you mentioned one time, I think you were like, you were taking a bath and
Mhm.
like you just felt this profound connection kind of midway through the container.
Yes.
And I think that is the beauty of awakening deeply to your intuitive channel, and that's when it gets easier to like surrender and trust, is that when you begin to feel the divine presence
Oh, yeah.
through you, to you, it's so hard to explain. But when you feel that deep unconditional love connection to your own divinity,
Mhm.
it's like, oh my God, why do I worry at all? I'm capable of anything, and I just got to trust that I'll get the next step. But do you want to share on that? That was such a beautiful moment.
Oh, yes. I can't even, yeah, that was
Put it in
so,
words, I know.
yeah, it was so like that was transformative in and of itself, just because of the power of that like divine love that I felt. And I had just, I had been struggling a little bit that day, and I was just being called to, take I think it was a Sunday, actually. I think it was a Sunday. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a bath, and I was in the bath. I had my scented, bath wash, and I had my rose quartz with me. And I mean, I had set a mood,
I
everything. I
love
had
it.
a candle going, and I had done a grounding meditation, like a quick 10-minute grounding meditation. And then I just sat in silence and just like allowed myself to sink into my heart space. But whereas I would normally look for my inner child and my ego, I just envisioned myself on a beach by myself. And I was just sitting there on the beach and listening to the waves breaking. And I mean, I was there. I was visually, and physically feeling the weight, the wind, smelling the air of the sea, hearing the waves breaking. And all of a sudden, and it had been a day like this, like where my bath is situated, there's windows, and it had been dark and overcast. And as soon as I visualized myself on this beach, the sun broke through the clouds and was just like shining on me in my bathtub. And that's when I was like, this wave of like just pure love came over me, like this pure love, acceptance. I mean, it was so moving. I started crying, and I just remember getting out of the bath going, was that for real? And then after I came out of the meditation, it was like the clouds came back in. It was
It was just this
that's
divine moment.
wild.
I love it. And you can't make this stuff up. Like you
No.
can't, like, that's pure connection.
Mhm.
That's a pure reminder of our own divinity, of your connection to source. Everything's going to be okay. They're always watching out for you, supported, led, held, all of it wrapped up in that one moment,
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, if it hadn't happened to me, I might not believe it if somebody had told me, because
Yeah.
it's so outside of what anything we're taught or,
Yes.
like conditioned.
Yes. And I think it just goes to show that intuition is so much deeper than any one thing. Intuition is so much deeper than just like, oh, me receiving angel numbers from my guides, me receiving pings every now and then. It's deeper than that. It's reconnecting to your soul self. It's having moments where you feel the divinity and you feel this wash of unconditional love over you. Those
Absolutely.
are the transformations that happen when we go deep and we do the healing inside higher self awakening. It's just more than anything that I can describe on paper.
Oh,
And that's why I
absolutely.
love bringing women here to share. And I also want to add two things to that story. Is one, I remember you have a Lemurian connection, correct? Was that your
Yes,
galactic?
Lemurian, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we kind of go deeper in higher self awakening on who are some of the different guides that we're working on. We always open to receive from any of our guides, but I know sometimes we go into the star seed. What family are you from?
Mhm.
So that was fun to like see you have this water connection. Like for you, when you get into water, it really helps you tap into your soul self. So you
Mhm.
get those little insights. And then also this Wendy's story that she shares also reminds us that we receive intuition, love, and guidance through the physical body as well.
Mhm.
Why in higher self awakening? Again, it's not all about just channeling, third eye, opening the crown. It's also remembering I have to stay deeply grounded in my body.
Yes.
I have to feel safe in my
Yes.
body. I need to do practices like baths that help me tap into my body, because then you can really be this beautiful channel to receive. So I love that story, Wendy. It's one of my favorites. And I think it was kind of pivotal in your journey as
Oh my
well.
gosh. Yeah, because um remember I'd had all those massive like experiences right after our very, very first healing. And it was almost like the floodgates opened after that healing for me. And my ego and my inner child still weren't quite on board. And so
Yep.
they kind of freaked out and then they shut down.
Yes.
And so the connection, then the channel went to a trickle after these experiences because they were pretty intense.
Yes.
And so now they're finally at a place where they feel safe. And I acknowledged my soul self over a month ago, and I have been. When I do my practice, I make sure that all three are there, the four of us are together. And so now they feel safe enough to turn the volume back up
Yes.
again.
Yes.
And so I've been working on, getting my back onto a consistent practice with my meditations, my grounding and everything. I have been doing the auric cleanse I try to do it every night. I've
Yes.
listened to it enough that now I don't have to listen to it. Like I have it
Yay.
memorized.
That's my hope, is that like the audio's there for a little bit. Inside HSA, I give women different practices that they can use. Sometimes it's different audios, but the goal is that like it becomes kind of ingrained. Like, okay, I can kind of walk myself through this energy cleanse on my own.
Yes.
And also you can make it your own, you know? Good.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Wendy. So Wendy, for anybody who's maybe on the fence about like, so doors to higher self awakening are not open yet. However, if you're also just loving this conversation, loving like this whole opening, awakening to your intuition, what does that mean? You can also join me inside Ascend, which is a 4-day virtual experience where you're going to get a taste of what it's like to fully awaken and open to your intuition. Excuse me. And then women who are in Ascend can also be invited. There are 12 spots opening for HSA this summer. But if anyone's kind of like curious about getting into this, what would you say to them? What might you be like yes, like if this is the nudge, if this is coming through for you, or any advice for anyone just kind of like thinking about going deeper in their own intuition mastery?
I think that if you're watching this and or you've been in Maria's world, following her, listening to her podcast, I definitely think that that's a nudge, and do it. Do it, do it, do it, because it's amazing. You're going to come out a whole nother person. I literally feel so different from the person I was when I started the container. Um,
Yes.
I mean, it's just so much more like you said, it's like you feel it in your body anymore. If I get the chills about anything that I'm talking about or I'm reading, it's like, oh, okay, I'm on the right path, or they're trying to tell me something,
Yes.
So absolutely do it. You're not going to regret it. You're going to feel so much, I want to say more yourself,
Yes.
like your soul self. Like you will recognize how powerful you are. I mean, I can't even, there are no words, just do it.
Yes. 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 I think, yeah, I love that. And you're not the first person to say that you'll feel more like yourself. And I know that that's weird because it's like I'm already myself. But gosh, sometimes we only see a fraction of our magic.
Mhm.
It's, because of the inner child stories, because of the ego stories. And it's like when we clear and heal some of that, it's like,
Yes,
whoa, this is me. This is my home. This is my full soul
yeah.
self, my essence, my power.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I realized was that when you go into this container and you think you're ready, and you're like, oh, I already know myself, like you said, but really it's all the programming that you've had your entire life
Yes.
that and that's a lot of that isn't real. A lot of that is just BS
Yes.
that has been programmed into you forever and ever, and it's really not it's not real you. It's not your soul self. And when you go through the container and you do all the theta healing that Maria does on you, you realize that at your core, that is not who you are.
Yes. 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 And the other thing that I want to mention, because then, Wendy, I want to go into how women can work with you, where they can find you. Because what I want to say is HSA is really for the woman who's ready to go
Mhm.
deep. Like you're ready to go like all in with this focus on intuition mastery, because already, you're intuitive deep down. You also know that you're pretty like logic driven, hustle, strategy. You've been relying on a lot of that, but you're ready to double down on intuition mastery. What HSA is not, and what I want to say for even my own journey, is that I had some work to do before I was ready to deep dive into like my own intuitive
Oh yeah.
channel. I'm also a former, I still am type A. I'm driven, but I'm a former overthinker, anxious, perfectionist, people pleaser. And I had some layers to work through before I maybe would have been ready to deep
Mhm.
dive all into HSA. So I also want to point out, I benefited working with a therapist, working with a coach, working with different people to begin to notice my own thinking patterns, to
Mhm.
begin to notice areas where I was like leaking energy because of my people pleasing tendencies.
Mhm.
And so there are beautiful spaces where you can go to begin your personal development journey, to begin your healing. And so, Wendy, for women who also might have identified with earlier, I mentioned that you help overthinkers and people pleasers begin that healing journey, and you are a certified quantum coach. So how can women find you? How can they work with you? Share a little more.
Thank you so much, Maria. Actually, I would love to. I am also hosting a weekly free call right now called Soul Chats.
Yes.
It's every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon Eastern Time. So if you're free, I will drop a link. I always post a link also on my IG, my stories. You can
Okay.
find me there at empowered by / Wendy. Um, and I also have my website. You can check me out,
Perfect.
wendyharveycoaching.com. Right now I have a one-on-one container open. It's 3 months of one-on-one
I
and
love that.
boxer support.
Love that.
And I have some, like if you are just wanting to dip your toes in, I do have some like, 3-day rituals, spiritual reset rituals that you can use to like see if you're ready to move on to the next step. It's a
Yes.
great way to start to figure out where you are, if you're okay with sitting in silence, because that's so important. And I know it can be hard. It can be hard if you've never been able to really sit with your own thoughts because they're so all over the place. Sitting in silence can be overwhelming.
Yes.
So my 3-day spiritual reset is just a little bit of dipping your toes in to see if you're ready for the bigger stuff like Maria's container.
I love that.
And definitely, if you are that overthinker and you're just feeling exhausted and you're done with overgiving and are really figuring out how to set your boundaries, come see me. We'll have a conversation, see if we would work well together. But that's what I help women do.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I truly do. I've heard great things about Wendy's Soul Chat. I think that's a great way to get into our world. Wendy, you are a ray of light, and I'm just so
Thank you.
grateful for the work that we've been able to do together. And I'm super excited because Wendy and I are going deeper into even some more intimate healing this summer because as we all know, and I know this is hard to hear, especially for our ego, but healing is a process. Healing is a journey that as the onion goes back and we see the different layers and we're ready to go to different layers in our business, in our life, it's like, oh, sometimes there's these mirrors that come up
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, I want to go to, I know for myself, even as I'm like going into a next level in a layer of my own business, I'm actually like signing up. I'm doing my own package with my one-on-one subconscious data healer this summer. And so it's like you will be invited into these deeper layers when you're ready. And so triggers are not like a, oh no, woe is me, I failed. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm being called up to the next level of my healing, which is so beautiful. So
Oh, yeah.
wherever you decide to start your journey, just know that you are not alone, that your growth and your evolution is your biggest key that you can do to manifest your life dreams. And so I'll also make sure to be tagging Wendy on this post so you can easily go find her and check out her soul chats. If you have questions about HSA or you want to sign up for Ascend, I'll drop those in the comments and they're also in my link in bio. So Wendy, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate you. I can't wait to start our work in June. I'm so excited.
Me too.
I will see you soon.
See
Tomorrow.
you. Yes. Oh, yes. Thanks, Wendy. Bye.
Bye.